St. Paul's Cathedral. That's where I've been today. I've been up there, up on top of the dome, and throughout the entire thing, hunting for mysterious symbols, of which there are many. In fact, way too many. I don't know if you noticed, but whenever I start filming, a distant siren happens. Thankfully it's not coming our way, so it's fine. On top of that little fountain there is the Gridiron. The Goose and Gridiron is a tavern or a pub that used to be in the garden, St. Paul's Churchyard Gardens, as it was being constructed. And the Goose and Gridiron, even on Wikipedia, will tell you when it was next to St. Paul's Cathedral, it was like basically the meeting place, the premier meeting place of the top Freemasons in England. Nothing too suspicious about that. It's just the thing about St. Paul's Cathedral is that what I believed it was as I was growing up turned out to be the complete opposite of what it really is. That I understand now that I'm, an adult, apparently. I mean, you don't have to do too much research into it, for example, to realise that it's not really a Christian church at all. It's almost like a building that celebrates atheism, of which I have no problem. Have no problem with atheism. Hey, you see my balls? Oh, they're not mine, obviously. Check out the balls. Am I in this picture somewhere? Is that me? I have no idea where I am. I'm standing on the steps. Am I there somewhere? It's weird. When you stand on this ball, you suddenly disappear. I have no idea where I am. Oh yeah, I'm right in the middle. Just in front of St. Paul's Cathedral. Hello. Seeing the Millennium Bridge from up the top of St. Paul's is really quite impressive. I mean, you definitely... Oh god, it's like one of those things makes me look dumpy, like a clown. I'm a clown! You can kind of tell that this is the Temple of Atheism because of the godlike feeling you get when you're on the top, looking down upon all the minions. It reminds you when you go up there that men have become the god. Quite an impressive image there of, well, the setting sun or the rising sun within a pyramid with a phoenix rising out of the flames. And of course they tell all the kiddywinks when they go into St. Paul's Cathedral that the phoenix rising out of the flames is, symbolises the rebuilding of St. Paul's after the Great Fire of London. I have made, I believe it was in the film called The Human Catalogue that I made, when I went into All Hallows by the Tower, and was talking about the symbol of the phoenix, which basically represented the Brotherhood from England, who went across to America. Exemplars of brotherhood. So nothing is always quite as plain as it seems. There is a thing inside the dome there called the Whispering Gallery. And it was the Whispering Gallery that I really wanted to see when I went into St Paul's Cathedral, or rather I wanted to hear it and record it, which was quite difficult to do. Well, it was easy to record it audio, but not so much video, because they don't want you recording in there.
Camera off, sir, please. Switch your camera, please. Switch your camera, please.
You're not allowed to film up here.
No, there is information.
So I wanted to read you a little passage from a book which I have read numerous times, not because I worship it, but because I distrust it. But it's fairly interesting nonetheless, and it's called The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. And it's quite a long book, and it has lots of stuff about everything, and it's a good it's a good thing to read, not to trust it entirely, but then to branch you off into other areas of research. And the passage I want to talk to you about is specifically about acoustics of, perfect buildings built by ancient architects, because that's essentially what St Paul's Cathedral is an attempt to do, is to build a perfect, harmonious building. That's why it's 365 feet tall, for example, to give it a relationship, and a harmonious relationship with the earth, because, Christopher Wren is part of the Brotherhood. Anyway, the uninitiated were invariably overwhelmed by the sense of majesty and symmetry resulting from the perfect coordination of pillars, spans, arches, and domes. By variations in the details of size, material, type, arrangement, ornamentation, and colour, these inspired builders believed it possible to provoke in the nature of the onlooker certain distinct mental or emotional reactions. Vitruvius, for example, describes the disposition of bronze vases around a room so as to produce certain definite changes in the tone and quality of the human voice. In like manner, each chamber in the mysteries through which the candidate passed had its own peculiar acoustics. Thus, in one chamber, the voice of the priest was amplified until his words caused the very room to vibrate, while in another, the voice was diminished and softened to such a degree that it sounded like the distant tinkling of silver bells. Again, in some of the underground passageways, the candidate was apparently bereft of the power of speech, for though he shouted at the top of his voice, not even a whisper was audible to his ears. After progressing a few feet, however, he would discover that his softest sigh would be re-echoed 100 times. It was that passage, and a little bit further down, that really made me want to go to the Whispering Gallery, because the ancient architects believed that sound was very important for enlightenment. Certain early works on magical philosophy hint that the Ark of the Covenant was oracular in nature, or oracular, like an oracle, because of specifically prepared chambers in its interior. These, by their shape and arrangement, were so attuned to the vibrations of the invisible world that they caught and amplified the voices of the ages imprinted upon and eternally existent in the substance of the astral light. So the Ark of the Covenant was so acoustically shaped to create an amplification of the whispering voices of the spiritual realm. But I don't think they were talking about the voice of God.
No photography.
Funny how, when Sir Christopher Wren was so interested in light, being the royal astronomer and all that, and, you know, fitting out St Paul's Cathedral with clear windows so light could be allowed in, why they're so nervous and so suspicious about people who want to film or take photographs in there. It's like they're a religious intolerance for people absorbing that light like it belongs to them or something. There is, of course, in the crypt the tomb of Nelson, and any way you look at it, it's really quite a worshipful object of a man. It really sums up the entire building. I mean, you've got the tomb of Wren in there as well, who seemingly didn't want to be worshipped because he's just sort of shoved in a corner. I'm not sure if I understand that just yet, but certainly this is the temple of the worship of man. It is certainly, when you look at the checkerboard patterns on the floor, and you realise that one of the primary Freemasonic symbols is the circle with a dot in the middle, representing the temple, and when you're standing underneath the grand dome, it's essentially a big circle with a dot in the middle. You realise that what they tell the kiddywinks back at school when they're growing up, oh, it's a big church for the worship of God and Jesus and St. Paul the Apostle, you realise, or rather, I wonder why they don't tell children the truth.